Hi, everybody, and welcome to our newest episode of the 21st Century Underground podcast. With you, as always, I am Salvatore, the writer of the group.
Brandon Salas, filmmaker extraordinaire.
Mike Villarreal. I make music and stuff.
Indeed. Yes, he does. And this is, on today's episode, this is going to be more of, we've kind of been talking about things that we've been interested in last couple episodes, actually almost exclusively. And so this episode is going to be kind of our first episode where we really spend time and focus on kind of peeling back the process for you, like as like creatives and like what we do and what inspires us. More specifically, what we're going to be talking about is going to be our influences, which is why this episode is called Under the Influence. And we're going to talk about the things that we've loved. We've each picked something for film, music, and literature, and how it inspired us, not only inspired us, but then worked its way into like our greater process and how we kind of create from that. And so yeah, I think that's like a really interesting subject because obviously, you know, if you're in any art form, that's a huge part of it.
Art inspires art.
Art inspires art. Yeah, consuming, you know, and kind of, you know, and then putting that back out in your own way, basically. So, but before we begin, we're going to talk about, you know, just sort of before we get into our heavy influences, the things that we've chosen, we're going to talk about things that we've seen recently that, you know, just kind of inspired us, like, you know, within the last couple weeks that really hit us. So, who wants to? You want to go first, Mike?
Well, recently I just caught up to the season, couple of seasons of show called Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh, that's a good show.
It's a really, really good show.
Right?
And learning more, seeing how you guys do the filming structures and like just thinking about like how it's shot and the characters and more than just character development and plot is amazing. But like just seeing how it's shot with these long takes with lots of dialogue fast, you can't miss a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's just so
boom,
awesome.
boom, 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 boom.
It's really great. It's like perfectly tuned dialogue. I feel like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's really well done.
And it's
like
just cheek and
the humor is so smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same creators, the Gilmore Girls too. I think. By the
Oh,
way,
yeah?
yeah, I was, and no one seems to know that for whatever reason. But yeah, no, it's like totally, yeah, it's the same creators.
That's funny.
So.
But I love that show. I love like how
actually,
fast it is.
Oh, sorry, no, I was gonna say the Gilmore Girls too. That was another thing, was like the snappy kind of fast dialogue. Yeah.
I never watched Gilmore
Yeah.
Girls, so.
Oh, well, I've heard about it. I've heard things from people who say it's very good.
But hey, you know, it's all right.
Hey, it's okay. No, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. I haven't seen much of it. Just enough to know. It's a cultural touchstone.
I really just like that. It's just so fun to watch. That's like my favorite thing about that show is it's easy to watch. Like you can just burn through episodes without like, it's effortless to burn through episodes, and it's just stress free. I don't know. It's nice to have. I don't really have a lot of those stress free fun shows.
Well,
okay, it's a fucking show about a single mother taking care of her daughter. You know what I mean? They're just trying to. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, go ahead.
well, some of the stressful moments is when like, I mean, if you guys haven't seen it already, our listeners and watchers out there, it's pretty much like this. Like, what era does it take?
The 50s.
1950s.
The 50s.
The main character is a white Jewish woman in New York who's a comedian and ends up getting divorced and has really strict Jewish parents, and she's trying to make it as a comedian, and it has this evolving plot. You kind of don't see how it's gonna go. It's so not typical with relationships, and how like I feel like commonly like they depict relationships to be like very sour, but surprisingly like a lot of these relationships are like realistic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Her father is probably my favorite character.
Oh yeah, ever evolving
the mom and
characters
the
too.
dad.
Like every single one, I legit like every single character.
Yeah.
And so,
her arc with the like ex-husband is really good.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
really interesting because
Really
it's like
good.
surprisingly, it has a lot more depth than I thought it was going to, just in like the first season. But like it's continued in this interesting way that I really wasn't expecting, and I was like, oh, okay.
And it covers some nice like you know, gender role things going on without being like really heavy handed or gross about it. Like it's just like, hey, it digs into these topics. That were in the 50s that are still being dealt with today, but in a really cool, like, I don't know, way.
It feels natural.
Really, yeah,
it feels natural to the story.
It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
Sabrina. Let's put it that way.
Oh, season 2, Sabrina.
Season 2 of Sabrina.
Yeah, actually, I was
haven't
I was
seen
literally just thinking about that. Either it was yesterday, I think it might have been this morning, and I was like, man, that show was like it wasn't like great.
It wasn't great.
Like the first
But I was
season
willing
wasn't
to give it a
great, but
chance.
it was like fun.
Yeah.
And then it got into like the second season, and it was like, oh, this is rough.
Well, they're already about to drop
Yeah.
the third season. They're just burning that. I don't think they're even trying to write it. I think they're just like,
this was successful. People liked this.
what's the topic
Yeah.
for today? They start filming.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first season.
First season I thought was pretty good,
So,
but I
yeah.
just
Yeah.
hated
I
the
like
second
first season
season.
wasn't
I couldn't
bad,
even
yeah.
watch it. So
I like the coloring on it.
yeah,
me too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to like. I thought.
But anyways, that was my most recent inspiration of creativity. Very rare I find really good shows. I'm like, damn, like I gotta tell people.
That's a great show.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's on Amazon Prime if you guys don't already know.
Just the writing is
yeah,
so
really good.
sharp, and yeah, Lenny Bruce is a character. It's like, I really like that. He's not like at his heroin addicted, burned out like end phase yet, but I like that he's in it.
Yeah.
So he's the reason that we can say fucking shit and stuff, in a public forum. So he went to jail for that a lot.
Yeah, I like how it ties into kind of like what era it took at the time. Like it's realistic.
Yeah.
It's not just you know what I mean.
It's not total fiction or something like.
Yeah.
She's not. I mean, she has a little bit for the time, I guess, but nothing in the show feels grossly out of proportion with the time period it's taking place in. It's not like where they set something, 50, even 100 years ago, and then try to like sort of, I don't know, just sort of pull that time period into our kind of like domain, like where we can kind of in a frame of reference where we can understand it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel unnatural, I guess, to the time. Like it appeals to a modern audience, but it makes sense in the 50s. I don't know how else to put that.
Yeah.
So what's yours, Brandon?
I just finished reading / listening to an audiobook. It was The House of the Spirit.
Spirits. Isabella Allende.
Spirits. Isabella Allende. There you go.
Did you like this
Allende.
book at all?
I really
No.
loved that book. I just forgot the author's name.
I don't think you fucking read that book, Brandon.
Really great book. I really liked what it covered. It was like basically it takes place. It doesn't necessarily say in the book. It leaves a lot of the politicians and the locations and stuff like that vague. But if you know anything about the author and the actual background history, it's talking about Chile.
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 Sorry, I'm just fucking with you now.
The country?
Yes, the country.
Yeah, right,
Not the
right.
food,
Yeah, you
not
like,
the
like
food.
take notes.
Chile?
Yeah, the country.
Is there going to be a quiz later today?
Yeah.
It takes place there. It kind of follows from like the beginning of the 1900s to about 1960. It covers about 60 years, and it's really cool watching it because it just the way it covers that time, that span of time with it's following this whole family, and the history of what I like about it is kind of brings light to these issues that you think about things that they didn't really exist in the 1900s, and you see this culture of the ranches and everything like that with all these peasant workers, and that still was very effective all the way up until like the 60s when you're having all these communist revolutions down in the South America. And it was just cool seeing that the way it just tackled this history while also telling the narrative of this family. It reminded me very much of a Game of Thrones like huge arc while being only one book. It covered a lot of time and a lot of plots in a kind of short amount of time. And it was interesting because it doesn't really focus on dialogue that much. It does have dialogue, but it's more focused on all these actions and even thoughts of characters and what they do. And you still get a lot of character development while not necessarily getting a lot of dialogue. It was just a really interesting book. I really liked it. So
Yeah, it was
highly recommend.
Magic realism, I believe.
Yeah, some magic realism was going on there. It was
Yeah.
cool because one of the main characters the main story technically follows this man who's not actually related to this family who gets married into this family. And the first woman that he marries an older sister. She ends up dying, or plans on getting married to this older sister. She ends up dying, and so he like goes in both for a few years, and then ends up marrying this younger sister, who is clairvoyant, and her name's Clara. And so it mostly follows this couple throughout the 60 years and their kids and their like everybody around them, and it deals with a little bit of magical realism with her, and she has definitely a sixth sense, while she also is able to talk to spirits, and there's a lot of spirits in this house. And there's just this whole thing going on, and like repeating characters that over a span of 60 years are almost unrealistic, but there's always this, like, again, it comes to that a little bit, that magical aspect. I don't know, it's a cool book.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Yeah, lately, I actually just went to the library. Actually, interestingly enough, our local libraries have a wide selection of DVDs and books. But yeah, no, the library, I actually literally went to the library and got like a pile of like 10 movies because they have a ton of like Criterion DVDs and stuff like that there. Some things that I've had a hard time actually finding, I was able to find at the library for free. And it's cool too because when you go to the library, it tells you how much money you save by using the library.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, yeah, no, like the Criterion DVDs, it's like you just saved $40 by checking this out. And I'm like, great, you know. But yeah, no, I got a pile of movies, and then I also got a pile of books, and almost all the books were by Thomas Pynchon, because I've been working on this thing lately. I think I mentioned in our last episode, Uncut Gems, that one, how I've kind of been working on a book, and I don't know, I've kind of just been like looking at different things and just kind of reading different things. I've had like a pile of research, and my like leisure reading has shrunk down a lot. But one of the things that kind of like, actually I won't even say that, but one of like, I guess like one of the influences that I kind of been thinking about is sort of because I read a lot of Thomas Pynchon in my early 20s, and then I went and got some more of his books, and I was looking at him. I have like a whole new appreciation for him because I like didn't quite understand them as a you know, in my early 20s I understood parts of them. And the funny thing is I see a lot of things now that I read particularly in like my early 20s or teens I had like a superficial understanding of, and I get sort of caught up in like these like aspects of them that were very shallow, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is cool, you know what I mean? It's like very sort of, I don't know, I like latch on to the part of it that I could kind of like espouse to other people in like an egotistical way, and I could be like, yeah, you know, I get this concept and this bullshit. But now that I'm like older and I don't give a fuck, like I read his books and I see so much more in there, and I've got a couple of them that I've never even like, you know, tried to read before, like Mason and Dixon, which is supposed to be really good. And I also I got the book Inherent Vice. I never actually read that one. And I got the movie from the library too. I was watching a little bit of that. I love that movie. I haven't seen that since it was in theaters.
There's a movie called that too.
Inherent Vice is the film.
Vice,
Yeah.
Film and book.
Walking.
Yeah, and it's great. The whole movie I watched like about like I was trying to do some writing in here last night. Didn't have too much luck, and then I went out and put on that movie for a little bit, and I watched about 20 minutes of it, and just like even that, I was like, this movie is so fucking good. It's like the entire movie feels like you're high, and the book is like that too, from like the little pieces of it that I've kind of read. But I think I'm gonna read Mason and Dixon. But the thing that I like so much about his work is it's like, I don't know, it's very complex, and it's very, you know, some people have like a hard time with it, and that's understandable. You can't really talk about his stuff without sounding like an asshole, because like anyone who talks about his stuff is almost always posturing, so it's difficult to express enthusiasm with other people about it. It's like actually come together, and no. But the thing that's cool about it is it's so complex, and there's so many. Somebody described it. I was watching a review earlier that described it very adequately, and I realized why I attach so much to his work now. They were like, these books are perfect for people who grew up playing RPGs like Fallout and Elder Scrolls and stuff like that, because they have so many subplots and so much going on inside of them that it's like one of those games where you're going through the main plot, and I think the guy who said this, he was the book alchemist or something like that. I'm pretty sure he's an Italian language student whose job it is to read and critically understand like works. I think his area might be like American fiction. He's got a great review site on YouTube, but he said that you know, in like one of those games like Elder Scrolls or Fallout, you're going through the main story and you get caught up in all of these side tangents and side quests that are as interesting, if not more interesting, than the main thread. And that's like what's so great about those games, you know what I mean? And that's like the exact same thing with his books, because they are so complex and there's so much crazy shit just going on. Like Gravity's Rainbow and Against the Day are two really good examples of that, because the plot is just this swirling, insane thing, you know what I mean? But there's just so much richness, because it's just like someone who just loves stories and words and storytelling and characters, and just like packs it full of all this stuff. And I don't know, I love it. It's I can't really speak very intelligently on his stuff right now, but it's like I don't know if I ever will be able to, but like there's just so much in there, just so much richness, like so much layer. Like I feel like I could read almost any of his books like multiple times over my lifetime and get so much out of them each time. So yeah, and I really love it. So it's like really a treat to kind of come back to it, not only enjoy it as much as I did when I was like younger, but enjoy it even more because now I have like an actual appreciation for it. Like I'm not just like, it's not just some like treasure trove thing like, ooh, I'm gonna gonna find the influence in here to put in my fucking writing, and then I'm gonna impress people with that, and they're gonna think I'm a good writer. Yeah, you know. But like now I actually like love it. You know what I mean? It's really great. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So that's our most recent
Yeah.
inspirations
Ah.
for the time being. And then we got our top 3 kind of overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is like our I mean, and this doesn't necessarily, because we all had a hard time putting this list together because we're all like very indecisive and we've been exposed to just a ton of different things. So this is like the ones that like when we look back on our life, like me personally, like I've chosen 3 that I can remember being like a turning point for me. You know what I mean? They came at a really significant time and really affected me and showed me something new specifically. Like each one shows me something new. I mean, honestly, like Thomas Pynchon can possibly go in that category, but I don't have a grasp on him enough yet, even after like having been into him like at least since I was a teenager. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't use that, but I don't know. For me, I'm going for things that showed me something that that gave me like an epiphany that I could apply to my work. You know what I mean? And I can see where it happened, and I can see where it worked its way into my work, and I can see the influence. So that's kind of what I'm going for with it.
Yes, things that push the envelope for us.
Exactly.
For me, it's going to kind of be a little more of the shallow approach. My list is going to go over like basically stuff that really inspired me and stuff that just I remember inspired me at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's about the same. Yeah. Cool.
Should we just get started?
Yeah, we should just go into it. Yeah.
Start with music.
Yeah. Start with music. Mike, you were the man for that one. I feel like I'm always putting the spotlight on you lately, by the way. In the last episode, too, I'm like, go ahead, Mike, take it away. Like,
Take it away,
you're
Mike.
like the furthest person from me, so I can just kind of sit here and think while you go. Yeah, right.
Go
I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
For me, speaking of the more not so in depth, like game changing, inspirational music that I'm just like, it's the reason why I make music. But this one is just a song that I really enjoyed, and it's a artist named Mino, and he's a Korean artist. He's part of a couple K-pop groups. And the song is called Body. It's probably his number 1 song, and other than Okie Dokie, he has another song called Okie Dokie. That one's good. It's more popular in Korea, but Body, it's just like the way it's produced, the beat, the way he was on it. It's really like I can't think of like more well-rounded, complete. It's one of those songs you can just keep listening to. It's very addicting, and have a lot of American hip-hop influence. It's like more of a hip-hop trap kind of style of beat in music. If you guys haven't heard it already, go take a listen to it very quick, come back. The guy, the artist Mino, he's part of the YG Entertainment is his record label. And he's YG Entertainment's one of the top 3 record labels in Korea, and he's probably one of the most, I'm not gonna say the most successful, but he's one of the most that in that record label that I keep kind of going back to see what he's gonna do next. It's a really good song. I don't think I sent it to you guys. You guys should really listen to it.
Yeah, we were surely listening to that. Yeah. What the fuck? Why didn't we go over this with each other beforehand?
Why didn't you read The House of Spirit? The Spirits.
Yeah. We probably should.
We're gonna have to do some fucking homework. We're gonna have to get serious in here. Jesus fucking Christ. Fuck.
We lost Salvatore.
I'm sorry. I wanted a moment. I wanted to shake it up.
Appreciate that.
All right, let's continue.
Well, and for our audio listeners, Sal threw his headphones down and just stormed out the door.
See, the problem is on the monitor, I can't see the door, and that's what I was hoping was that it'd be framed up like that.
But yeah, that was my recent inspiration.
Sorry to like completely hijack your spotlight like fine. That. Yeah,
you're fine. Like
hijack your moment with my bullshit.
It's fine. That song, Mino by Body, is just like inspired me to do music. Like it made me like 4 beats. Like every time I'm feeling like like I want something that's exciting, that's like that gets me going, and then that song kind of pumps me up, and I'm just kind of re-inspires me to be creative and experimental and try new things. And so yeah, that's why I chose it. I remember just listening to back when I 2019 when I was really on top of making a bunch of beats. But yeah,
it was giving you some fire. That's cool.
Well, the interesting thing about K-pop too is that they don't have like any single. It's not like American music where it's like sort of this single influence and there's all this history behind it, but like they just kind of pick and choose things. Yeah, there's no connection to it really, or not as much of a connection. It's like, because a lot of it is K-pop is receiving the cultural influence from overseas. You know what I mean? So they're just getting all this stuff at once, and they're like kind of, you know what I mean?
There's enough of a disconnect there.
Yeah, a lot of it,
some rock, some hip hop.
A lot of it is inspired. The K-pop world is inspired by a Western type of music. They do have influences of their own style. I think the most recent that I know is BTS. Really went in depth because they were like known to be like going to Western and appealing to too many Western types of music.
Yeah,
but this topic can go deep.
Well, they're popular over here.
Yeah, they're very popular.
But you're right. That's kind of getting away from your answer. Yeah. So we'll leave that for. We'll have an episode about K-pop later. And I'll scream and leave the room again. I'll go out the garage next time.
Hey, we can actually go over Korean media in general.
Yeah,
movies,
actually that'd be pretty cool. Actually, I'd be super down with that. Yeah,
there's some definitely good.
Parasite just came out. Actually, it's getting all that Oscar buzz.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
let's go over that.
Let's do it.
Well, for me, hands down, my guy, my musical influence is probably and very consistently throughout my life, Moby. I'm really down with the Moby.
Yeah. He's actually
the artist or the book.
The Whale?
The artist.
Oh, the Whale.
Actually, no. It's funny you mentioned that. I was just going to bring that up. He is actually related to the reason he has that nickname. He is genuinely
related to the Whale.
No, he's related to Herman Melville, who wrote Moby Dick. I'm serious.
You're serious?
No, I'm not kidding. He's like a distant relative of Herman Melville, and his family is aware of it. When he was little, he was just like this little
Did you take a DNA test?
No, well, not yet. I'm trying to get permission. No, but apparently, no. But he's been aware. His family. Cool. It's been like in his lineage forever. Yeah, and his family.
I always wondered about his name.
Yeah, no, really, that's where it comes from. Because as a baby, he was like this. Like they said, he was sort of very shrunken and completely pale white. And in the book, he's
always bald.
Yeah, like when he was born. Yeah, he was like this, like just sort of very smooth.
But that's not actually his name.
No, it's not. No, I'm explaining it in the book. Okay, so he described in his memoir that he looked like that as a baby, and because of the Herman Melville reference, they're like, oh, because it's a white whale in Moby Dick. It's like, oh, he's like a little white whale. Let's call him Moby, and that was like his nickname through childhood. Yeah.
He's a little Moby.
Yeah, see, guys, nice. We got there in the end.
You may know me from Southside. Where you did it with Gwen Stefani.
I do remember that song. That was in the early 2000s.
Porcelain. Or in my youth, I used to know as Porcelain because I did not know how to say the word porcelain.
And then Brandon met a child version of me, and I was like, "It's porcelain, you fucking idiot."
I was like, "Hey, do you know that song, Porcelain?"
Yeah. I like that song. It makes me feel good. I'm like, you got the name wrong. That diffuses your entire enjoyment of that song.
Damn,
fucking it. No, I'm kidding.
So
that's what a grammar. No, I was just channeling. I was channeling the grammar Nazi there.
I have a lot of words like that.
Actually, I heard the other day on another podcast, apparently they caught the Unabomber because he was a grammar Nazi. In one of his letters, I can't remember what it was, but there's a certain turn of phrase. Oh, have your cake and eat it too. That's what it was. You can eat your cake and have it too is actually, I guess, the proper English version of that. And his brother saw that in like one of his letters or manifesto, and they're like, "Hey, my brother was a dick about that growing up. That phrase, I think that's him." That wasn't exactly what happened, but apparently that was like the gist of it. I was like, that's so good.
But I just love his music. I listened to like literally almost his entire discography, really, from his really early, his really high energy early stuff where it's still that club music, but then I love the shift he gets into these more cerebral space where it's this very relaxing, calming, or ambient style music, and then he straight up has like albums that are just straight up ambient.
I listen to his ambient albums when I write and read all the time. I was in here last night, doing a little bit of both actually, and I was listening to his ambient albums. I was listening to a little bit of Brian Eno and stuff.
Yeah. It's funny that like there's very few artists. Well, I'm gonna take that back. There's a lot of artists who like that I've listened to that don't go well with doing other tasks.
It's true. The lyrics, well, it's not only the lyrics.
It's just
the music
a lot of
sometimes
commotion.
Too.
And to me, like I've experienced with chill music and or like hype music. I like music because I throw on my AirPods when I listen to music, and I just listen to an album that way.
Yeah.
And I kind of gave it my rating like of how good was it how good of an album listening to it while I was working. I mean, my day job's working on cars. But Moby, it's like I can listen to it anytime, working or chilling,
For
or
sure.
just like straight up focusing
Well,
on
there's for sure a science to that too. Because I
There
remember
is.
I was actually listening, and this was pretty like cool to hear. I was listening to Apollo by Brian Eno. It was one of his ambient albums. It was made as a soundtrack for all this footage they found of the Apollo mission to the moon. And I guess the guy, and this made so much sense, the guy who produced that with him was apparently a music psychologist. So he was interested in music as a way in which to evoke like an emotional state or like a state of consciousness, and they applied that to like the record, and I was like, that makes so much sense. And that stuff for sure inspired Moby later on, especially with his later stage of his career.
And like, just in case you guys don't know, he didn't stop at like 2000 or whatever. He really has been making albums nonstop on very almost like well, he does like albums and vinyls, but like Spotify, he has like everything.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love how cerebral and it is, and I like that you can listen to it almost whenever, and I like that it just connects I feel like my brain's just connected to it. Just like it's like a massage for my head. I can just vibe out and just think. I feel like I can think clearer when it's playing.
Well, music like that, it corresponds to some greater structure, like in like your neurochemical. You know what I mean? Like there's something about it. Like there's literally. I think that's why music works. It's like a pattern that in some way interacts with us on like this deep neurological level. You know what I mean? And his for sure does that. You know what I mean? Because it feels like genuine therapy.
Yeah.
Under the right conditions. You know. So.
And how that inspires me is I love that it's also very cinematic. It has a very cinematic quality to it. The a lot of his music. I think one of my dreams is to work with him on a soundtrack for one of my films.
Indeed, it is.
Ooh.
Yeah. I would also love to meet you.
Let's date this.
Yeah.
Eventually, I mean, he makes good films. So
Hey,
we'll get there.
that's right.
He does indeed.
But I just love that. I love that cinematic quality. I love that it just has this ambient feeling. It's almost like a soundtrack for my life. If I'm driving at night, if I'm doing work, I can just feel that energy.
For sure.
And
His music very effectively when I hear it. The songs that I heard when I was younger, when I hear that music now, his stuff really effectively takes me back to that exact place. I was talking to you about this earlier, but the last on his album 93 to 96, that compilation,
that's what it's called,
there's that song the first Cool Hive or whatever it is, and it's just like that. It takes me back to literally being a little
It aged, and I think his music aged well.
It did.
It did.
Yeah.
No, it did absolutely, because some of that stuff from like that period, like, oh, this is super 90s.
So if you being straight up
you
ignorant
totally melted.
Yeah.
and not listening to Moby, you're making a big mistake, and you need to
Yeah.
listen to Moby.
For sure. Yeah, because I remember like hearing that song in particular. It's like I'm like in the backseat of my dad's car when I was in second grade again, and we're driving, and you know what I mean. I don't know. It's a whole atmosphere to it, which is great.
So I can listen to that all the time. That's just my jam.
Extreme Ways, I hear that, and I'm like, oh, that's like the
Inspires the
time
crap out of me.
that I was like that rogue, like the CIA, did that experiment on me, and they thought I was dead, but then I was swimming away. That's Extreme Ways brings me there.
Jason Bourne.
Yeah, it was a reference. Yeah.
In case anybody was wondering.
All right, Mr.
Salvatore. You want?
Salvatore.
Yeah, please tell me your music.
Arnaldo. Mr. Salvatore.
No.
There's no coffee in there.
Yeah,
What do
no,
you-
there was a little sip left. There's a little
Okay.
sip. But yeah, no. Actually, now I'm tongue tied because I only work well when I'm like interrupting other people.
Here I can start talking.
No, let's just stay really quiet and make it awkward for
Yeah.
him.
Okay. Well, my influence. Let me think here. I had a couple that I was thinking about doing. I'm gonna go with. I'll go with Brian Eno. I'll go with Brian Eno and David Byrne in the '80s did this album called My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, which was named after a sort of a magic realist novel by the Nigerian writer Amos Tutula, and. Really good book, actually, but the album itself is it's aged extremely well, but it was like this experimental.
So you're talking about the artist Brian Eno?
Yeah, Brian
Not
Eno.
the song?
No, not
There's a
the
song?
MGMT song. No. No.
Damn, you got that
Yeah,
reference.
I did. Yeah, I got that. No. Yeah, no, Mike. But yeah, Brian Eno and David Byrne did this album called My Life in the Bush of Ghosts in the early to mid '80s. And
Where would I know Brian Eno?
You would know Brian Eno from. Brian Eno. No, Brian Eno. He's worked with a ton of artists, but the big thing was he was in Roxy Music, and then during the '70s he worked with David Bowie on his Berlin trilogy, like 3 of his best albums that he's ever done. The 2 of them, really collaborated pretty hard on that. And, he's worked with a ton of artists, Talking Heads, which David Byrne is lead singer of. He's worked with Coldplay
British,
and
right?
U2.
Is he British?
He's British, yeah.
Don't get into it,
Brian
don't
Eno. Brian Eno. He's, very good. Very interesting. I mean, he broke a lot of ground as a musician. Like, in that period in, like, the late 70s, early 80s I feel like we were...
Oh, shoot.
What?
Speaking of Brian Eno, I'm going to pull a Sal and
Yeah,
interrupt you real quick.
I know. Yeah, I'm like,
But
this is fine, yeah.
Windows XP. Brian Eno. If you had anyone who had a Windows XP, you open up your Windows Media Player, you had 3 songs, and they're all by Brian Eno.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I do remember the 3 songs, but I did not know they're Brian Eno.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know
It
that.
was just like,
my father had Windows
Can you
XP.
edit in the song just for like a second?
All right, everybody, quiet. Yeah, I bet you
Okay.
remember that.
Yeah,
you
that's
remember
really
that?
good. Yeah. Oh, wow, that was great. Actually.
Yeah, I think I should cut in that the those old Windows Media Player visuals.
Dude, that'd be
Oh,
fucking cool.
shoot.
Please do that. Yeah, find
Dude,
that and just kind of like, yeah. Oh god.
I didn't have internet, so what I did when I had Windows XP,
I'm
when I
so
was growing
sorry.
up-
Yeah. Oh man.
it took me a while to get internet. I got internet eventually, but
Dude, I had a Windows
legit-
95 for a long time.
I legit like just looked at every single file and like just for the fun of it.
I think everybody did that though.
Yeah.
Even with the internet.
Yeah.
Deleted it, see what happened.
Early days of the oh
You're like-
god.
Started acting weird.
Yeah, I had a
restore.
for the longest time we had a Windows 95 that my grandparents gave us, and so that's what we were using when we were like, poor earlier on. We were like just using a Windows 95, and it got so fucking slow by the time I was like, I mean, at some point we finally buckled down, and my dad was making more money, and we got an XP, but it was like, I don't know, around the time I was 8-9 years old, I just remember sitting on this thing, and it took forever to use the internet to load one web page to the next, and I was like, fuck. Yeah, Brian Eno.
Brian Eno,
Dude,
guys.
Brian Eno. He was good.
He's the
So
man.
let me finally talk about this
Enough
fucking.
said.
Let me finally talk about this fucking album. My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. I'm gonna use that because I heard it. I was probably about 15, 16 years old, and Brian Eno and David Byrne, lead singer of the Talking Heads, did this album, and it was this just very. It was like it was in that period of music in the late 70s, early 80s when like punk rock had kind of crashed the door down, and we were kind of in that deconstructed. We had just passed through this deeply deconstructive phase where we were just trying to kind of tear everything apart, and kind of no one was kind of sure what was. I don't know, like what the new decade would bring, I guess. And it was sort of the reconstruction phase. So people were just experimenting and doing all sorts of things and trying to kind of figure out what the new sound would be. New sounds, rather. And David Byrne and Brian Eno did this very sort of like art rock, post rock kind of album. And they just experimented like crazy with it. But the crazy thing about it was very listenable. You know what I mean? The music on it still holds up. Like, I mean, I listened to this thing when I was maybe 15 years old, 16. So, I mean, given that it was written in the early to mid 80s, and I was still listening to it then and enjoying it, like in probably 2007, 2008. I mean, that really speaks volumes about how good it was. And anyway, I got super into that. And the thing that I think that just sort of like appealed to me so much about it was that it was so listenable and it was so good, but it was so experimental and so creative, and that they just took the boundaries of everything and completely, you know what I mean, completely exceeded them, completely, I don't know, moved past the horizon where people thought, you know what I mean, was like the extent of what you could do, and just kind of, I don't know, they just used the boundless sort of imaginative power and creativity to kind of do something, I don't know, that was so different and so compelling. And it just kind of showed me that you could do that, you know what I mean, that you could kind of...
I wish I can comment on this. Yeah, I don't quite remember that album.
Yeah.
I wish I can comment more on it.
Oh, yeah, I hear you saying.
Because
the whole thing, it was just very interesting. Yeah, like it was...
Is it
yeah.
like I don't know if you know any of this stuff, but did it change keys throughout songs? Did it? What kind of time signatures were they using?
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. They used recordings of an exorcism at one point in it.
Okay,
They had like
so-
all these like crazy stuff.
I think...
And it was good. Like they sampled
Brian Eno
all over the
stuff.
place. Yeah.
And he has a structure, you know. He
Oh, for
typically-
sure.
he
There was
typically keeps
a
it
definite structure to it. Yeah.
4/4 usually. He keeps it 4/4 and
Oh yes, 4/4.
and that's key signature.
He's
or,
like a
uh,
yeah.
time signature. But So he like experimented with using samples and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like
what year
Yeah.
did this album come out?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it was recorded in 1979 to 1980 and released in 1981. So yeah, it was right in that period. When everything was
81.
changing.
81, huh?
Yeah.
Giorgio
And it's
Moroder.
still, and
Okay,
actually, it's funny.
I definitely haven't listened to
It's
that.
funny that there's that's the cover actually, very, very
I
artistic
definitely
and
haven't
experimental, very
listened
abstract.
Synthesizer.
But yeah, no, it's funny that
Hopefully you don't
you
use-
mentioned Moby because the newest edition of it has a quote by Moby on the cover that says this album hasn't like aged at all and it's every bit as crisp and you know what I mean as when it was released.
would
And it's
know.
true. No, he would know. Honestly, like it's very good. And these are like the genres: experimental rock, avant funk, world beat, electronic, funk rock, sampled delia. So yeah, it's a great. Oh, there's Arabic in it. Yeah, English and Arabic are the two listed languages. So, but yeah, it's great. Oh, here's Moby's quote. In fact, let me just read it to you. A beautiful record standing the test of time with no wear whatsoever. So that's an endorsement by Moby, and we might as well close that out there. But the thing the thing that I loved about it was that it was experimental and it pushed the boundaries of what I thought was possible, and that really
And
inspired
that's
me
what we
a lot.
try to do all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Tell me
For
your
the
movie
audio
stuff,
guys.
bro, or show.
So the movie stuff. That's the next topic.
I've had way too much fucking coffee, by the way.
Story of your life.
Yeah, I know, right? Anyway, go ahead.
The next so it's like music, movies, and then like literature, and so the movie thing for me is a little
What you trying to say?
Hans Zimmerman. I brought it up earlier.
I hate to be a dick about this after just like ranting about the Unabomber and everything, but is it Zimmer or is it Zimmerman?
You know what? Everyone knows what I mean.
Hans Zimmerman.
Yeah, everyone knows what you mean.
Hans
Okay.
Zimmerman.
Hans Zimmerman.
And that's
Zimmerman.
right. That's an
Sorry,
important
guys.
lesson about language. Everyone knows what the fuck you mean. So maybe
It's
get off Mike's dick over here, Salvatore.
know,
All right, go ahead.
English.
And YouTube commenters.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Colonel is spelled fucking weird. So
yeah. I mean, the English language is no place
Well,
to.
you know, popcorn
yeah.
You know what
kernel
I mean?
makes sense.
okay.
Okay, sorry.
So
We're getting really off
You're gonna throw me
subject here.
off.
Yeah,
You're
let's
throwing me
talk about Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmerman, not necessarily a movie thing, but yes, it is a movie thing because he does soundtracks. He composes all this amazing soundtracks from some of my most favorite films of all time, and he's done them all. He's done all the ones that I'm like, damn, I'm like, whoa, when I leave in the theater.
He genuinely adds
So-
a layer to anything he's a part of too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this music
He
is so.
doesn't. Like his music that like we were talking about Hans Zimmerman the other day, and you I think it was you, Sal. Is like his music doesn't really stay in the background. It's involved with
yeah,
the movie
for
and
sure.
plot.
Yeah, yeah.
He was one of the first composers soundtrack that I actually look up on and see who made this. Like he was the first guy, and this is before I was 16, 15,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like recently just got a computer, and I was messing around with GarageBand and learning how to make music and all that, and he's one of my first inspirations to like. I'm like, whoa, I would love to make soundtrack music.
Oh,
if I
and
could
some
make
some
so-
context. If somehow you do not know the name, you got like Sherlock Holmes, Dark Knight, all the
Discombobulated.
Batman
Yeah.
movies. Well, not all of them. All the Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
Yeah, most of Christopher Nolan's movies actually. He's just like
Yes.
almost his composer at this
True.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gladiator he did.
Gladiator.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some of the older ones that people might not have.
Interstellar,
Gladiator.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan.
Inception.
And then I know there's an older one. I can't.
No, there's a lot of older
Older
ones.
ones.
Did he do any of the Michael Mann movies? I don't know.
Find out. Comment.
Yeah.
Your comment will be promoted in our next episode. Did he do any of the Michael Mann movies? Thank
Yeah.
you.
A little thing about, a little bit about Hans. This podcast is being filmed in Phoenix, Arizona,
Yes.
and we have a museum of musical instruments,
The MIM Museum.
the MIM Museum, and there's this giant, like 20-foot bass. Like where it looks like a
Like
upright
ding, ding,
no
ding,
no
ding, ding,
a
or
upright
ding,
bass,
ding, ding,
yeah,
ding. Okay.
all wood,
Like
like a giant violin. For people who don't know what an upright bass looks like, imagine a giant violin wide, you know what I mean? So an upright bass, but giant, 20 feet, can barely fit in the
20
room
feet.
that
It
has
was 20 feet up in the fucking air. This
you need stairs to you need like a like a.
How do you play it? Actually, like honestly, like serious question.
They have a special bow for it. It's massive.
Like, is that like three
Is it
people?
like on a crane?
Three
or like a
people using the
robotic like
bow?
armature of some sort?
It's usually about 2 people. 2 people.
Okay, I can visualize that.
Easily, but like.
I've never seen it before, but after you said it like that, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But like at the same time, you can just drum it yourself. But it's huge. But the decibel rating, or anyways, what I'm going to this is that Hans actually used this instrument, came here, and sampled it for one of his films. I wish I knew which one it was. I just know that he did.
Wait, I thought
A little known fact.
we talked about this a little while ago, and I swear to God, you had the title of the film.
I don't have the
you
title
sure?
of the film. I don't. I just know because I was.
This is why we on Joe Rogan's podcast they've got a guy Jamie who sits behind the camera and he's like a Google ninja.
All right, really
and he
important-
looks up everything like
Really?
need
We
that.
need that guy.
Yeah,
Really
we need that
James.
guy.
Let's get James
Jamie,
to do it.
yeah.
Really important-
Actually, yeah, he'd be really good at. Yeah,
Well,
he'd be good at that.
the
yeah.
really important thing is, I felt like this when we were talking about this whole time. It's Hans Zimmer.
No, I know. I mentioned that at the beginning.
Oh, I thought you said Zimmerman or
No,
Zimmerman.
I keep
he
saying
said Zimmerman, and I was like,
keep
is
saying
it Zimmer?
Zimmerman.
Is it
Hans
Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer.
Okay.
Yeah, I keep saying Zimmerman.
We had a whole discussion about that at the beginning.
I thought you said Zimmerman or Zimmerman.
No, because he said
It's
Zimmerman, and I was like, isn't
Zimmerman.
it Zimmer?
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's Hans Zimmer, and we
Sorry,
know
guys.
that.
It's
Yeah.
Hans Zimmer.
Anyways,
Thanks for the correction, Brandon. But anyway, that's my thing. That's my movie inspiration. He inspired me to do
Hans
music.
Zimmer.
I always love involving like theatrical music into anything I do.
Mhm.
It's all about the feeling for me, more far and foremost than
Well, I love him because
the entertainment. It's
because-
about the feeling.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that bass story. That's kind of like with Interstellar too. He's that giant ancient church organ for Interstellar because it was like this like advanced instrument for its time, and they wanted to like use that and like kind of make it the sound of the
Yeah.
future almost. And,
Cathedral.
yeah.
the movie Games.
Oh, was that what he did it for? Okay,
Yeah,
we
the
definitely did
games.
not mention
Thanks-
that last time we talked about it.
Brandon.
But yeah, and it's
We
like
just Googled that.
yeah, he did that for Interstellar, and then the choice. Well, that was more Christopher Nolan's choice in Interstellar, but then also like I don't know. He's done a lot of different things like that where he's
My favorite
experimented with
part
music.
is his just he keeps obviously like a good soundtrack artist. He gives every character their own theme, but like it's not like we're only like the main character has a really good theme. Every character has a really good
the
theme.
razors on the guitar strings is another good example of experimenting and
Yeah.
creating this unique.
You're talking
yeah.
about the Dark Knight.
Dark Knight,
Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And then Wonder Woman too. Her theme is the only distinctive thing about the DC movies for me now. Is like, honestly, like I felt like that was
There's
like really good. And then
There's
like,
surprisingly a lot of videos
Yeah.
of him talking about the soundtrack, and so you guys can. That's how I found it myself. But yeah, the Dark Knight. He got an electric guitar with high gain, which makes it a kind of, and then he got a metal. I think like a rusty saw. I forgot. It was a piece of metal. He just grind very slowly and give that.
that suspense.
I listened to that soundtrack on its own.
Yeah.
Like that's sick.
Well, I
Yeah.
listen to a lot of soundtracks on its
Yeah,
own.
I listen to soundtracks on its own.
But hey, I'm going to use that
Discombobulate
fantastic-
I actually listen to when I'm like hyped
Oh yes,
and I got to drive somewhere like dun, 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 dun. Or if I'm running down the street in disguise to head off my nemesis or something. It's pretty cool.
I'm going to use that wonderful Hans Zimmer, not Zimmerman.
Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer. Coincidentally, Christopher Nolan is going to be my choice.
Christopher Nolan?
Man, it's funny.
What has
Nolan.
he done?
Well, he's done movies such as The Dark Knight, what do you call it? Dark Trilogy?
The Dark Knight trilogy.
The
Dark Knight
The
trilogy.
Dark Knight
I like
trilogy.
how Dark Knight was that good. It just dominates the
They
name.
they just used the title again. I was surprised.
It's,
Yeah.
not like the Batman Begins trilogy. It's the Dark Knight
that
trilogy.
had to be a marketing move.
Is he a director?
Yes, he's a director.
He is.
Right. He's
What has he done?
semi-writer.
He's done. Yeah, no, he's
He
well.
acts?
Actually, he was a literature student before he did film.
Yes.
And then he pivoted sort of into filmmaking.
He's like
Does he
pivot.
act too?
No.
I feel like no.
No, not really. I didn't even see him act in anything actually.
But yeah, director. I think he does a little bit of producing. But yeah, mostly known for his direction. He's done Inception, Interstellar, Following.
Yeah.
This is his like first flick.
I really like Christopher
Insomnia.
Nolan then, because those two are top movies that I love.
Yeah.
Which one?
Inception, Interstellar.
Oh,
yeah.
You
Dunkirk.
said both, right?
Is that- you said-
Dunkirk,
yeah.
Dunkirk was
Dunkirk
a really
and
actually
Memento.
amazing.
The
I don't
Dark
like
Knight.
Memento actually,
Yeah.
but
The Dark Knight. Which was the other one? So
He's done in order. He did Following. He did that one beforehand. It was called like Jitterbug or something. It was like
He also he did Insomnia,
film.
right?
He did, yeah. It was
Insomnia.
The Following, Insomnia, Memento, Batman Begins, The Prestige, Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Interstellar, Dunkirk. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've seen like literally every single one of his movies. I think.
Yeah. No, me too.
Even Following that at this point.
Tenet is that one that he's got coming out this year.
So I say all that, and
What inspires you?
the funny thing is, he's not necessarily. I won't necessarily say his movies are my all-time favorite movies. I wouldn't. If I was talking about like a top 10, I wouldn't necessarily have any of his movies as my top 10. But I find him to be very inspiring. I like that he rose to the top doing doing this Dark Knight trilogy the way he kind of wanted to. He had this like it was during a time period where he's able to have some freedom with it. And he just made a really incredible trilogy that were all these blockbuster movies, that were all these mainstream movies that were really good, not just in the box office, but just as movies in general, they were really well done.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the art that comes into it.
That's the thing. I heard Quentin... Okay, so recently, and Dunkirk, I mean, really amazing movie. I heard Quentin Tarantino talking about it, and he puts it on the top 10 of the decade list because, like, he was talking about it, like, compared to Saving Private Ryan. Like, Saving Private Ryan... That opening scene with the D-Day, like Spielberg puts like almost all of his directorial effort into that opening, and all the great shots are in that opening. And then through the rest of the movie, you don't really see, like, you can't really, it's just to tell the story, the rest of it. But Christopher Nolan with Dunkirk, he's telling a great story, but every single frame is like so artful. You know what I mean? And that was Tarantino's point was, you kind of, the D-Day scene was great. But that's like where all the memorable sort of shots kind of end, and then the rest of it is like you're kind of moving the narrative along. But with Christopher Nolan, like every single frame of the movie, it's like
it's
puts so much care and effort, and and there's such a wide range of influence that you can see. Like you can see like Terrence Malick and Stanley Kubrick, and it's like he's drawing from all these different places. Nicholas Roeg probably too a little bit, and it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I find it easy. I find that
Spielberg
what he does with these movies, and he follows that same kind of theme with the movies after the Dark Knight trilogy, because then he gets after the Dark Knight trilogy, he basically gets a get out of jail free card for any movie. Like he gets funding, he's gonna get it,
which is great. And he may have gotten that off of a superhero movie, but he still over the past 10 years has been doing original films with giant budgets and making blockbuster
and being able to stay
with
true
them,
to himself.
Yeah.
And I love that he's creating these blockbuster movies, these movies that are, and this is where I'm trying to get to my point. If Salvatore will shut the fuck up.
Oh, sorry. I was enjoying it. I'm sorry.
What it builds up to for me is the fact that he's able to make these movies that are meant for a large audience, but they're also higher in concept, and that's what really gets me. That's like the thing that for me as a filmmaker I really gravitate to, is being able to tell stories. I hate movies that are only for like an intellectual movie just for the intellectuals, and it's this very heady movie that only a tenth of the audience of the people like. And while I do enjoy those movies, I hate that they're only intended for that. I feel like that's just a draining way as far as storytelling and filmmaking goes. My goal is to build drive in a big audience and help get that point across I want to get across, and help share that theme to a group of people, not just my intellectual friends here. Okay. And again, not that those movies
be impactful and have a lot of meaning.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was somebody,
and that's what I like about all of his movies moving forward, is that he deals with these slightly bigger concepts that aren't normally seen in the blockbuster space. But they're still blockbusters, and they still do really well, and they still really.
Do you know what? You know what the problem is there? Part of it is like ego and trying to appeal to almost like an elite group of like creative people, but like also the problem with that is there's intelligence, and then there are and that's like one thing, and that's impressive, sure, but in and of itself it's kind of useless. You know what I mean? You need to be able to transition that. There's intelligence, then there's being intelligent, and having the ability to convey that to people in a way that makes sense to them. And the problem is a lot of people don't have the ability to express themselves in a way that makes sense, because you need the communication skill to go along with the intelligence. Otherwise,
and it's not, and I don't mean to come off like there's plenty of movies like that I do really enjoy, and I can put myself in that seat and enjoy. I find it so inspiring to be able to do that, because that is my goal.
No, I hear what you're saying too.
Versus
making
like critically acclaimed movies, it's more like it's more. It's instead of thinking about the critics who all they do is watch movies and rate movies, it's about everything, about coming down to the masses themselves, and which is tight.
Yeah, there's these niche things that are very good, and it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? It's like just made with its purpose in mind, and that's fine too. Yeah.
Just who's that director I don't like?
Terrence Malick.
Terrence
I
Malick.
mentioned him. We were talking about Christopher Nolan, actually. Yeah.
Terrence Malick.
I do like watching.
I don't like
No,
movies.
I enjoy every movie I've seen by him, but I totally understand why someone wouldn't want to watch it. Like that's one of those things. Like I've got a lot of things like that.
What's
where
the
like
one with the guy? What's his name?
which one?
We were watching it. We were watching it with Julio.
Oh, it was either Night of Cups or
It had the guy
Song to Song.
No, what's the main actor in it?
Ryan Gosling was
No, it
in.
wasn't.
Christian Bale was Night of Cops.
It was a Christian Bale.
Were we showing you that?
He does
Yeah.
the Lincoln commercials, right? Like I know his face. I just
Christian Bale?
No, it's not him. Then the guy that does the Lincoln.
Matthew
commercials.
McConaughey?
Matthew McConaughey.
He wasn't in any of his movies.
Was it Matthew McConaughey?
No, he's not in any of his movies, man.
Oh no!
We
you know what?
did
You know what?
show
I
you
get
one
mixed up with Christian Bale.
We
Matthew
did show you one
McConaughey.
with Christian Bale. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
It's Christian one with Christian
Yeah.
Bale, where they're just like.
Oh
in
yeah,
this-
Christian Bale. Yeah.
They're in like
He's just walking
Beverly
around
Hills,
LA.
like,
Yeah. He's
like
just at
very
parties,
snobby,
and he's
like,
like, "Fuck."
poorly filmed.
Yeah.
He's overwhelmed by the.
Yeah, he's like, "Fuck."
They have like a high quality camera. And they're just like
Life.
walking around with
Yeah.
it like a YouTuber. Anyways,
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah. Look at all
But
of
they're
this.
elite about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Critically acclaimed.
But yeah, that's what I find inspiring. I that's my dream. That's my goal. That's what I hope to do with my my future films. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salvatore, talk to us.
Okay, so with film, so actually I'm gonna choose something interesting. Actually, I started that sentence and wasn't exactly sure how to like get my way out of it. But yeah,
What kind of film?
I'm going to go with. I thought a lot about this one, and I decided to kind of go back to that same place where I was with My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. With that album, kind of like that same frame of mind and that same time period. So I saw these two films when I was about probably 16, 17 years old. I'm going to go with David Lynch. I'm going to go with two of his films. I'm going to go with Lost Highway, which I saw first, and then Mulholland Drive, which I saw shortly thereafter. And those movies affected me in a similar way that the Brian Eno and David Byrne record did, because it was abstract, sure, and it like kind of followed almost this like dream logic, you know what I mean? But it was very immersive for some reason. Like there was a definite structure to it, and I could see that as I was watching it, and it engaged me in the way that a regular plot would, but there was still this layer of mystery that it lived in, and it was almost as though it like kind of just occupied the space of like chaotic potential to me. Like it existed in this imaginative space that few things do, and it was very tantalizing, and it just showed me almost like the structure of a film but existing in this other abstract place that I didn't realize it could exist, you know what I mean? And it had all the notes, and it had it had some of the payoffs of like a regular film, but it was all geared towards this completely different direction that was way more interesting to me, and repaid reviewings or rewatches, and that I don't know. You could always extract something more from it when you watched it, because it was a feeling that he evokes with his films. And I really loved that. And I saw, probably about 16, 17 years old, and it just kind of showed me that you could do something new. And obviously, when I saw it, then all I wanted to do was like, make films and write things that were like that. You know what I mean? Because I just like I was just so high on it. But yeah, it was just really interesting to me, because I don't know. It made me pay attention to like tone and image, and I don't know, just how you could evoke these sort of, I don't know, mysterious and kind of big feelings and concepts with in ways that I didn't think were possible. It was like, he does almost surrealism in his films,
It was like a pretty intense jump. I think we went, well, you, which was almost like how's a bipartisan of this.
Yeah.
But when it was like going intensely about like Kevin Smith, and then like immediate flip to like David Lynch.
No, I know, because I was when we were into Kevin Smith, in middle school and stuff like that. I remember I was kind of getting into you too, and like Stanley Kubrick and stuff at the same time. And then like I don't even know what happened. I watched Blue Velvet, and I was like, this is really
then
interesting.
It was like,
but then like Blue Velvet even still had like like a sort of, if you're coming to his movies fresh, like that one has like a pretty it's very weird and very odd, but it makes sense in a conventional way. It has like it's the tone of it is very, but it definitely, you can still follow it. It's when I watched Lost Highway, And I got to the end of that movie. I think I called Brandon immediately after it was over, and I was like, "You got to watch this fucking movie." This was like, you know what I mean? He's like, I just couldn't.
Is he your number one director?
He's in there. I wouldn't say he's number one. It's hard for me to kind of
top 3.
Maybe top 5, top 10. He just kind of showed me dimensions of film that I didn't know were there until I watched his movies.
I hear his name a lot.
Yeah, he did Twin Peaks.
All the people who like when I watch like videos about movies and stuff and directors, they always bring up David Lynch. I haven't checked out any of his.
We should show you Eraser.
I really do feel like he's like the king of like abstract filmmaking. I really do.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I feel like he really is like the king of abstract filmmaking.
Abstract.
Yeah.
And his goals when he makes movies, it doesn't feel like his goal is the same as everyone else's. Like it's like he's making
art,
like a 2-hour piece of art. Yeah, it's like I don't know, but it's like really beautiful. Like it's really good. Yeah,
that's good that you told me ahead of time.
Yeah,
because I'm very into like heavy plot, heavy character.
Yeah, this won't be quite like that. Yeah,
okay.
Actually, you like
it's more of an experience.
You like Sigur Rós?
Sigur Rós, yeah.
Yeah, you should. I would describe David Lynch's movies almost being kind of like their music is compared to like pop or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That'd be the best way to describe it.
If you think about the whole thing with intent, it's like splatter paintings. You can have a splatter painting where there's no intent, and the difference between a splatter painting with intent, there's just something there. You can gravitate towards it. You can
like this one. I was gonna say this one on the wall here. Yeah.
Who made those?
That one wasn't me actually.
That's a local Phoenix artist. I do not know the name of.
Oh, it's a Phoenix artist.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We won it.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
We'll shout him out. Next.
Yeah, it'll be in the.
We'll figure out who you are.
It'll be in the details.
Yeah. If you guys want to send us art, any local artists in the Phoenix area, we'll put it up here.
Yeah. If that
right there.
Yeah. Right up there. Can they see that? Yeah, you could see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, his I like his stuff a lot. He did Twin Peaks too, which was like revolutionized television, actually, which is odd. I wouldn't have expected that.
So Jeffrey Dahmer, tell me, what is your literature dude?
Yeah. Ted Bundy, tell us.
You fucking
John Wayne Gacy.
So my
Charles
literature
Manson.
guy is the writer.
Sorry, he just called you Jeffrey Dahmer, and I just picked up on that and rhymed with it. And I was like, wait, why are we doing this?
He's a serial killer. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
All black wearing.
Well, this shirt's navy.
I know.
blue.
It's like navy blue, but come on, dude. Don't ruin the vibe.
Okay. The writer, I'm kind of cheating again. Hans Zimmerman was more of an audio guy, but anyways, one of my favorite animes, Naruto.
What?
So, yeah.
Really?
Not Dragon Ball Z?
No.
Not Inuyasha?
No.
Okay. All right.
And the writer for it is Masashi Kishimoto. I'm pretty sure I messed that up, but
in the comments, correct us.
Masashi Kishimoto.
Or don't. I mean, we're trying our best, for fuck's sake.
Masashi Kishimoto. Come on, guys. Really good writer and really good story. One of the best plots. I've seen a lot of anime. I've seen a lot of shows and movies, and I just like the evolution he went with the character Naruto, and also the supporting roles and character development is very strong, and I really love that in the movie, in a world of a story. And one of my biggest things that I enjoy is, especially when it comes to fantasy, is when they explain the physics. They explain how the limits to the world that we're in the story. And he explains that. He explains how ninjutsu works and chakra and how it flows in your body, how it flows differently for different people. And like, I just, these are little details that just like, that are just stuck in the back of my brain, and that makes everything sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you don't know what the limits are to any story, you just kind of like, oh, and there goes another random thing. And like, when it comes to film, like I see, like, like when they cut it, when they stab a guy and then blood shoots in their face, like very like, oh, that's obviously like not going to happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You're not just going to stab a guy and have to, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I like seeing stuff that's realistic or explain that world makes sense. And
not rush explain, not like, it's not like hey, you can't kill me because I actually have a force field on, and then they just keep on piling on.
It's
Yes.
sort of like almost like a technobabble explanation.
Yeah.
Like a
Quantum.
yeah.
A quantum explanation.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
like as though you could travel back in time with some sort of quantum type technology and glove with it. I'm talking about Marvel. I can't be clever right now. I'm fucking fried from all that coffee. That's how those feel to me
Way-
now.
way
That's
better.
a good example of the opposite of that because that's just how it feels with that shit. It's like all
Draining.
Yeah, and like like Batman, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's realistic.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. 'Cause I hate it when it gets to a point where things are like so vague that it's like, oh no, the stakes are so high. It's like, why? Because they are. You know, and it's like that's how those movies feel.
Yeah,
Like watching
yeah.
the Black Widow trailer, I'm just like, good. Like I don't know, whatever. Like all right.
But when you have this lore that's
Yeah.
kind of really built to the structure, and you develop, the martial arts format, you develop all those things and really give it life, it really is just a lot more impactful on the plot and the characters too.
Yeah, I like the way it's. Another thing is like I like the way it's drawn and how like it's. It wouldn't be called cinematography, but I like the way it's shot.
Yeah, yeah.
the composition.
yeah, the composition.
Yeah, the composition. Yeah.
Like when I see that in film, that kind of composition, I'm like, oh my god, like where were you all my life? And like, and a random not perfect example of that is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Oh yeah.
I just
Fuck yes.
I just
a
like
great movie.
It's
I
so
recently
good. Yeah, no,
rewatched
it's really
that,
good, yeah.
and I just like how like just the tidbits of making that like not so movie-esque and more, video game and animation like.
Using that movie as a study for cinematography and editing, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. As far as the Edgar Wright's films, they put the purpose in storyboarding and pre-production for your cinematography.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, every cut
Well
and
plot-
frame
thought
of
out
his
things, I
movies,
love
like
it.
they're like just it's all saying something. I don't know.
It's planned. It's not thought. It's not like
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not like all right, and next scene.
Yeah.
that's what I like. That's the kind of movies and shows, movies, animations when it's like thought out.
It's like
Come
you're
on, like you're putting
you're
so much money into this.
You're like a
Just think it out.
mechanic of storytelling, of some sort.
Mike's
like
mechanic.
things to make sense mechanically.
Yeah. Yeah.
A to B to C to D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
boom, you got final product.
Yeah. You got a car. That's a car, my friend.
Car blows up.
Yeah.
The cars don't blow up like that.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite car explosions?
Yeah, actually, yeah. What is a good car explosion in a movie? Is No Country for Old Men any good? That one seemed real.
My favorite car explosion is when the car doesn't explode. Because it's
Well,
realistic.
in No Country for Old Men, he put okay.
Unless it's doused
Okay.
in gasoline
Yeah.
or has a C4.
That's what he did. That's what he did. No Country for Old Men.
He's
He
trying to
made-
tell me-
he made a fuse. He made a fuse out of the
probably haven't
gas
seen it.
tank with a cloth, and then blew it up, and then like blew out the storefront windows.
He just
This is in the
Did he
70s?
just put a rag in the gas tank?
Well, I think he soaked it in something, put a
Okay.
rag, lit it on fire, and this was a '70s car.
But was it a really long rag that it can go inside the pipe into the actual gas tank?
This was a '70s
Because
car.
even then it wouldn't explode.
Okay.
Because gasoline doesn't explode unless it's atomized. It just
All right,
catches fire.
let's not pay any attention to No Country for Old Men right now. That's not what we're talking about. Let's talk about Naruto.
So that's what I'm talking about.
You just
does
think
a-
you're so fucking cool. No, okay.
I'm really into physics. It's part of my job. But Naruto,
You're just like fucking like Richard Dawkins. You're like, I can prove a god doesn't exist. Okay. Okay.
he explains the elements of how every single ninjutsu works, and not everyone has it. Like everyone could be super powerful, but like everything, how did the chakra come from? Well, people weren't just born with it. It came from like an alien species, and I mean that's some spoilers. You guys need to check out the anime.
All right.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, you guys.
But I think it's cool. I think it's awesome. I need to check it out. Be fair.
Yeah, I need to see more of it. I've seen a little bit. I know
They have an
the
English
weird
dub?
hand movements they do.
No, they got entire things English dub now.
Where can I find it?
Not Funimation. Where did I see all of it? I think it's Funimation. No, it's Viz Media. So a lot of it is on Hulu. Let me check back. Go ahead and go with your
right.
with your literature idea.
Yes. I love to talk about my
do a
literature
quick
one.
Google search.
So I don't know if you heard this man. A guy that goes by the name Stephen King.
Wait, who's that?
I was gonna try to roll with that joke, but then like I just couldn't when when it finally came. I was like, I can't. Like I don't have it in me. Is he related to Stephen King?
Stefan King.
Nice.
No, but for me, my choice is actually very specifically The Shining by Stephen King. Not Stanley Kubrick's Shining.
But the one by him.
By Stephen, not the movie.
Not the movie.
Not the movie Stephen King's The Shining.
The same
but
the same
book.
gentleman that didn't write 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Correct.
Okay, or Lolita. Okay.
So not SK as in Stanley Kubrick, but SK as in Stephen King.
Okay.
So
Heck yeah.
Not
I
Vladimir
love that book.
Nabokov or Arthur C. Clarke, Stephen King.
I watched Shining originally, like I don't know, in high school. I mean, actually, probably younger than that. I think I watched that when I was.
I watched it when I was like second grade. My dad,
Yeah,
I was
actually, I watched
right
it when
at
I was
the
a lot
end, and my
younger.
dad came out and was like, "You shouldn't be watching this." Like, he's like, "Why are you?" You know, it was like the scene.
Would you had a DVD or something?
No, it was on TV. I was watching it
Oh, it
on
was
like
on-
AMC
okay.
or something. Like I was like
Well,
in
then that
second
means all
grade,
the good stuff
and I
was
was
taken
it was
out.
almost over. Like I was almost at the end.
I really loved Stanley Kubrick's The Shining when I was younger. I watched that. It gripped me. I thought it was one of the few horror movies I can always point back to that it gets under my skin for sure. And even like I could watch a movie and I'm like, ooh. But finally, years later, I ended up finally reading The Shining, and that just blew me away. I knew that it was different. I knew the ending was very different. I knew Stephen King had some upset feelings about the movie, blah blah blah. But dang, is that book really good? It's just
I bought it on a whim. I was like, which book do I want to read by Stephen King? I was just at a bookstore, and I was like maybe 10th grade. And I was like, I'm just going to grab one of these and read them. And I just ended up grabbing The Shining because I was familiar with it. And I started reading, and I was very pleasantly surprised by it. I was like, this is so different, but so good.
It's
like,
so
I couldn't
good.
believe it.
Is
Yeah.
it a long book?
It's a long book. It's not it length.
His stuff really, I feel like his stuff is long, but moves very fast.
Yeah.
When you read it. Like, I blow through his books because they're just so good.
They're very
you know?
easy to read. They're so. That's why I like.
And they're very easy.
You'll
yeah.
find this same thing with me. A lot of things I like. I like easy to digest things with high concepts in them. And once again, I feel like you get that with The Shining. I love that. So in the book version, you get way more character development. And to be fair, once you watch that and go back to the movie, you see just how little character development there
Yes,
is.
Stanley Kubrick didn't give a fuck. Like, you just realize how like cold and kind of sterile he is as a director, and like with,
He
like,
treats
the
characters and like dialogue as just
they're
tools.
Yeah, they're just
tools.
objects. Like he's like almost like some sort of like narcissist
Surgeon.
But yeah, no, he his movies are great. That's the funny thing. I love him as a director too, but not at all for the same reasons that I love Stephen King as a writer. And it's just like, but yeah, watching that movie, it's just like that you see like the real drawback to like the overly manicured 50 take kind of thing.
Could you
Like,
do
you don't
better?
get any life
Huh?
out of it.
Could you do better?
I actually do. I would really love to do The Shining. Not that
We've
necessarily.
talked about that, before.
yeah?
I would
We both
I
read
don't
the book
necessarily
and
wanna
seen the movie.
up-
Yeah,
I want to one up Stephen King's The Shining, the movie. That's why I would like to one up. Not necessarily Kubrick's. I just would like to tell something
Yeah.
that's a little bit closer to the book because I love the character development in the book. I love this really intense focus on alcoholism.
that was great.
That was
Yeah.
like, I mean, that's like one of the driving forces. I mean, you get a little bit of that in the movies, but like in comparison, it's like 1%.
Well, the tragedy that the family is falling apart is what makes the book so good.
Yeah, it's
you
very
know?
real. The fact that what he's wrestling with inside of him is this anger and this darkness, and he's very genuinely trying to get better, and he's trying to be a better person, and he sees that he's falling into darkness, but he can't stop it. And I love that. I think that's a truly horrifying idea. It's one thing to be able to recognize the bad in yourself, but not to be able to overcome the bad in yourself, I think is even scarier.
it's
The
'Cause of-
haunted house
'cause
isn't
alcoholism?
anywhere nearly as dangerous as the haunted man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because alcoholism.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
Well,
mainly
it
the-
stems from there, and then with
rage.
the
Because they didn't have that in the whatever resort they were in, right?
Yeah, there's no alcohol. It's and he's trying to stay alcohol free, and
Okay.
he's basically going he's going crazy because of the hotel itself, which has its own spirits and darkness to it, and that's kind of latching on to him, and then you get character development. What I like is each chapter takes turns from each of the perspectives. So you get Danny's character, you get Jack's character, and then you get what's her name's character.
Oh, Wendy?
Wendy.
I was going to say
Wendy.
Shelley Duvall, Wendy.
Wendy.
Yeah.
And you get each of their characters and
In the
how
movie,
they're
anyway.
experiencing each other. And like Danny, because he's a clairvoyant, he's like he sees the darkness in his dad, but he believes that he can overcome it. And then the fact that it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love the
Dick O'Halloran too is an important
It's
character.
probably my favorite. It really enlightened, like, it's such a strong component to character development for me, and what it could be and how it could be done.
Well, the cool thing about it is, I mean, it's literally a giant empty hotel with 3 characters.
Yeah.
4 if you count Dick O'Halloran, who's important too.
And he gets a lot of character development,
exactly,
too.
and he just focuses on these 3 people and just builds this family. And then like what's going, it's really good. It was one of my favorite books by him I've ever read.
Yeah,
you know,
it's definitely my favorite. I think it's inspiring. I think if you want to learn more about character development and even like just really good dialogue, even what's cool about it is they even have really good like ticks and everything like that. If you're like looking about movement or like, I love, and he does this in several of his books, but these things that characters repeat, like gestures or like playing with their hair or whatever, he uses those really well in a lot of his books. And that's something that you should definitely take and learn from as a filmmaker. So, director very specifically.
and
Danny
also,
says when it comes to that is because she's Danny, my wife, she's a writer as well, aspiring writer, and show don't tell is the concept of that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So let's end on literature over here in the corner.
on literature, man, I don't even know. I think I'm gonna go with just because the book affected me so much. It's not my favorite book, but it's the book that introduced me to this author, and I read it, and it goes with the rest of my thing because a lot of what was on my list were things I experienced between the ages of like 15 and 17 that profoundly showed me something. It showed me what you could do, and all 3 of these things, thinking back, honestly, all showed me the exact same thing. But the book that introduced me to Haruki Murakami was a kind of a short book by him. More recent in that I think it was from maybe 2006 or 7, and it was called After Dark, and it literally just takes place in Tokyo, modern Tokyo for all intents and purposes, 21st century, in the hours between like 6 p.m. and then like the next morning, and it's just these 2 characters. I mean, there are a couple different characters. I think there are like maybe 3 or 4 in total, maybe 5 that it kind of focuses on, but these 2 characters that kind of end up going out after dark and then kind of just ending up in this semi-surrealistic, semi-real sort of, I don't know, adventure that's like almost half between a dream and a reality. And the rest of his books kind of lean way more heavily into that, where people, will kind of, in the midst of their everyday lives will end up in a completely different parallel world. And they'll be like, it's very much in that magic realist, surrealist wheelhouse that we've been talking about through this episode.
I like to say we're... what was it I said? David Lynch is like you're stuck in a dream.
Yeah.
And then Haruki Murakami is like you're just dreaming.
Haruki Murakami is like you find the dream in the midst of your everyday life. You know what I mean? It's really cool. His books are awesome, and like they don't give you all the answers. But yeah, no, it's just the whole thing about like kind of, I don't know, it was like really tantalizing to me as a teenager because just reading it, like it just kind of gave you an idea. It kind of helped sort of accentuate the everyday and make it seem sort of magical and interesting, and kind of gave me it showed me that there were things that were possible beyond what I'd already kind of assumed. You know what I mean? Because all of his books, it's like someone in the midst of their everyday life kind of comes upon something, sort of amazing. You know what I mean? And something almost like...
It really is an incredible talent of being...
Yeah.
He has this way of writing about something so average, yet giving it this whimsical vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really incredible.
Precisely.
I do like his books a lot.
And and then just the fact that it took place in the hours after dark in the city, and the whole city shuts down. It's these like 2 young people, a guy and a girl, sort of going through the city, and kind of, I don't know, there's almost like this like sense of adventure, and this, you know what I mean? And it kind of plays into, I don't know, the idea of meeting someone, you know what I mean? Which obviously when I was a teenager, I was like, oh man, I really want to meet a girl, and and then me and Brandon as teenagers just sort of roamed at night a lot, like separately and with groups of people, you know what I mean? So it kind of played into that because there was something, because we lived in a suburban area.
Your parents didn't care?
I mean, they probably did, but
or you guys snuck out?
Well, no, we didn't really have to.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a suburban. The thing is, we're a suburban area.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we're like going anywhere dangerous.
It wasn't dangerous, but it was really cool because the suburban area almost completely shuts down after a certain hour. So we were just walking around, and the entire
There's not much lighting and stuff.
Yeah.
the entire world,
Cinematics.
the entire
AF.
world that we know is like asleep, and we're just out observing it. And it kind of played on that too when I read it, like the idea of just seeing the machine shut down. and you can kind of just pass through and look at it. I don't know, something about that was really. I know the book was kind
I
of.
gotta take you guys to
mesmerizing
my
almost.
hometown, Rio Rico.
You want to go right now?
Let's go. Yeah, let's go.
All right.
All right.
Hey, we're gonna put
Hey,
a finger right.
see you guys later. We're going to whatever he just said, and
Rio Rico.
where'd you say?
Rio Rico.
Okay,
Rio
where is
Rico.
it?
It's south from Tucson, close to Nogales.
Okay.
Like 10 minutes north of Nogales.
Okay.
Arizona.
Is it on the border?
Nogales is on the border.
On some
10
10
minutes
Oh, so
north.
it's 10 minutes north of the border. Okay,
South
cool.
of Tucson.
Well, that's what I mean.
It's technically
I
not on the border.
know. Okay.
But yeah, it gets super. When it's dark, it gets super dark.
Like
and,
Sedona?
you can just like walk through the woods, and it's like
Yeah.
it
There's
can
woods?
get. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, but
This
for
has been
real.
great. We've been
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
We were talking about all of our influences.
Yeah.
Real quick, we'll run through them. Mine was Moby, Christopher Nolan, The Shining. Why don't you go?
Go this way.
So yeah, no, I did My Life in the Bush of Ghosts by Brian Eno and David Byrne. I did Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive by David Lynch. And honestly, even just earlier, I was just thinking of all the other, because when you asked me about the directors that I liked, I was like, Martin Scorsese. I got a whole, Akira Kurosawa changed my life
We
when
could
I
have,
first
like,
introduced-
10
You'll
of these
hear about him
episodes.
more too.
Anyway,
as
and
the
then
more we talk.
After Dark by Haruki Murakami, I went with, and those are just all things that I experienced as like a teenager that really, I don't know, were like a
Life-changing?
pivot, like a pivoting point. You know what I mean? Not like the, not necessarily my favorite things of all time, but definitely
Important,
up there.
valuable,
Important,
inspiring.
yeah.
For me, it was Mino Body. Please check it out. And Hans Zimmerman soundtrack.
Zimmer.
You know what? I have it written up as Zimmerman.
Hans
Okay,
Zimmer.
well you gotta
Hans
delete
Zimmer.
that.
I
Hans Zimmer.
just did.
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer.
Hans
and,
Zimmer.
A writer for Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto. I love you. And
Every time you say that, I keep thinking you're gonna say Masashi Miyamoto, who was like a legendary Japanese samurai. But anyway, go ahead.
Masashi Kishimoto.
Yeah, they're great people. Check them out.
Yeah,
Maybe you'll get
and let us,
inspired.
let us know what yours are. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You want to get involved? I was looking at the monitor again. I'm looking at the camera.
Share the influences.
Yeah. Share the
Um,
influence. We are all under the influence as a culture.
What's
you
great
know.
is finding new ways of getting creative, finding new ideas to help. Maybe one of these things will help get you through your writer's block. Maybe you're working on something right now and you just can't quite get your finger on what's
Well, that's
wrong.
what it takes sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you'll see something and it'll just break your mind
Yeah,
open.
and it's not that you're gonna
Thomas
copy it.
Pynchon
It's
has
just
been
like
that
it's
to
just
me lately.
like it snaps. It connects
You're like,
the right synapse.
I get it. Yeah, you'll just hit the right. Yeah, precisely. It'll just show you something that you didn't think was possible before, and that's what influences do.
And that's what art
Yeah.
is, showing you things that you didn't think was possible.
From a different angle, maybe. Not
Yes.
even like a different way, just a different perspective. You know what I mean? And that'll really. I mean, that makes all the difference in the world, really.
So
Perspectives, and we are 3 different perspectives here.
we love what we do.
Communicating.
We love our art.
We love it. We cherish it. You know. And we're gonna keep doing it. We're gonna drive to Mike's hometown, which I already forgot the name of again.
Rio
And
Rico.
Rio Rico, 10 minutes north of Nogales. So we got to go, guys. But thanks for tuning in. You can follow us on Instagram at the 21st Century Underground. And you can check us out on Facebook, the 21st Century Podcast, 21st Century Underground Podcast. And stream us on
YouTube,
Spotify,
Spotify,
YouTube. We're
Anchor.
on Anchor apparently, which
Yeah,
I just found
Anchor.
out last episode. And thanks guys, and we'll be back next Wednesday with yet another episode where we'll have less coffee. And we'll be back. Who are we gonna be back with, Brandon?
Special guest.
We have a special guest, our first special guest.
Yes, a fine artist here in the valley,
a Phoenix painter, Pape Solomon, is going to be joining us. He's a good friend of all of ours, and he's an amazing painter. He's going to be having a solo exhibition coming up on January 30th in Tucson. If you are in that area, we won't be, because we will be 10 minutes north of Nogales.
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 All right, let's end it while we're good.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening, guys.
Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you later.